Walt Disney was cryogenically frozen. Walt died from lung cancer on December 15, 1966, and was cremated 2 days later. His ashes were placed at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, and that's a documented, verified fact. The cryonics rumor didn't even exist until years after his death, when speculative biographies started tossing around wild claims without proof. Writers like Leonard Mosley and Mark Elliott pushed the idea, but their books were full of debunked nonsense. Even Walt's daughter said he probably never even heard of cryonics. Snopes and other fact-checkers shredded the myth, pointing to legal records, medical details, and public family statements. It's all just made-up drama. Kubrick faked the moon landing. The theory that Stanley Kubrick helped stage the Apollo 11 moon landing is just another conspiracy with no real support. It started in the 70s with a self-published book and spiraled from there, dragging Kubrick's name into it because he directed 2001: A Space Odyssey. But experts have debunked every claim. Shadows, flag movement, missing stars, all explained by basic physics and photography. NASA's lunar orbiter even captured images of the landing sites and astronaut tracks. The so-called Kubrick confession, just a fake video with an actor pretending to be him. His daughter and colleagues called the theory ridiculous. It's fiction, not fact. By the way, if you guys like movie content like this, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, the Blair Witch Project was real found footage. Nope, not even close. The film's creepy, shaky cam style fooled a lot of people in 1999, but it was all scripted improv inside a carefully built fake legend. Directors Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez created the whole Blair Witch myth from scratch, then set actors loose with handheld cameras and minimal guidance. The real magic came from their early viral marketing stunt, fake police reports, missing posters, and even an IMDb page listing the cast as dead. People bought it because the internet was still new and weird, but the story? Totally made up. Everyone involved has confirmed it was fiction dressed up to feel real, just marketing with a flashlight. Heath Ledger improvised the explosion. He didn't. That iconic hospital scene in The Dark Knight was planned down to the second. The delayed blast wasn't a glitch. It was written that way by Christopher Nolan's team to heighten suspense. The entire building was rigged for one take, and Ledger's twitchy clicking with the detonator was rehearsed to match the timing of the controlled demolition. It looked spontaneous, which fooled a lot of people, but nothing about that moment was improvised. It was precise choreography, not a lucky accident. The legend lives on because the scene feels so natural, but that's just solid directing, not improvisation. Real skeletons were used in Poltergeist. Yes, they actually were. During the famous pool scene, Jo Beth Williams was flailing around in muddy water with real human skeletons, not plastic ones. Special effects artist Craig Reardon confirmed under oath that around a dozen medical-grade skeletons were bought from a supplier and then dressed up to look less clinical. Turns out, fake bones were more expensive than real ones at the time, which feels absolutely backwards, but somehow makes sense in early 80s Hollywood. Williams didn't even know they were real until after filming, which added a whole new layer of horror to the experience. Snopes confirmed it, and horror fans still talk about it like it's common knowledge. Charlie Chaplin lost a look-alike contest. Cute story, but there's no proof it ever happened. The tale started in the 1920s with a report claiming he entered a contest anonymously and didn't even place. Some versions say he came in 20th or 27th, while others put him in 3rd, none backed by hard evidence. Even his son repeated the story years later, but his version doesn't check out either. Chaplin himself flat out denied it in a 1966 interview, saying he had no time for that nonsense. The Chaplin estate found nothing in their records to support it. Snopes calls the whole thing unproven. Fun legend, sure, but still just a myth. Munchkin Suicide. The rumor that a Munchkin actor hanged himself on the set of The Wizard of Oz is pure fiction, cooked up long after the film's release. Snopes dug deep and confirmed nobody died during filming. What people thought was a body swinging in the background is actually a large bird wandering around, likely a crane, just minding its own business. The silhouette plays tricks on people's eyes during the Tin Man scene, and that illusion somehow mutated into a full-blown death hoax. Experts like John Frick have confirmed there's no secret version with anything darker than weird bird choreography. And those old VHS tapes, same footage, no dead actors. The myth took off during the 1989 anniversary re-release, but it's been completely dismantled by actual evidence. Jack could have fit on the door. Physically, maybe, but that wasn't the problem. James Cameron said over and over that the issue was buoyancy, not space. A floating door in freezing water couldn't support 2 adult bodies without sinking. He even had experts test it using stunt doubles and hypothermia science. With both people on, the board dipped too far and became unstable. Mythbusters found it could work if life vests were tied underneath for support, but doing that while freezing and half drowned isn't exactly realistic. Kate Winslet said adding Jack's weight would have just flipped the whole thing. Cameron called the whole debate stupid. CGI is cheaper than practical effects. Not really. It sounds true because CGI feels digital and magical, but the cost can be massive. Practical effects like miniatures, makeup, or real explosions can run a few thousand per scene, while CGI CGI-heavy shots often cost tens of thousands or more just for one scene. Big movies pour millions into visual effects, and CGI can eat up a quarter of the entire budget. Independent filmmakers actually lean on practical effects to save money, since CGI needs expensive software, teams of artists, and loads of post-production time. CGI offers flexibility, but that flexibility isn't cheap. It's not about one being cheaper, it's about what the scene needs. Actors died filming The Exorcist. They didn't. Nobody actually died on set, though the production had enough chaos to fuel a whole mythology. The set caught fire thanks to a bird shorting out an electrical box, which somehow spared only Reagan's bedroom. That delayed filming by weeks. Ellen Burstyn got a permanent back injury, Linda Blair fractured her spine, a carpenter lost a thumb, and a lighting tech lost a toe. About 9 people tied to the production did pass away around that time, including Jack McGowran and Vasiliki Maliaros, but those deaths weren't supernatural. Even Max von Sydow said the curse theory made for great marketing, not great truth. Silent films were always silent. Not really. The term silent film just means there was no recorded dialogue, not that the theater was quiet. Most films were shown with live music, from solo piano in small venues to full orchestras in big theaters. Many films came with cue sheets to match scenes with mood. In Japan, performers called benshi even narrated live, voicing characters and adding commentary, turning screenings into full performances. These films were built for sound, just not synced dialogue. So while the reels had no voices, the experience was far from silent. It was noisy, dramatic, and very much alive. Indie films always mean low budget, not even close. Indie just means the movie was made outside the big studio system. It doesn't set a price tag. Some indie films are made for pocket change, sure, but others roll in with budgets up to 20 million and still qualify as independent. Get Out and Manchester by the Sea were both indie films with budgets in the millions. The Film Independent Spirit Awards even cap eligibility at 22.5 million. On the flip side, there are indie films made for under 10 grand, like LOL. It's all about creative control and financing, not how much money's in the piggy bank. You can pull a pin from a grenade with your teeth. Not really. Grenade pins like those on the M67 take a surprising amount of force, around 6 to 11 pounds, to pull, which is more than enough to wreck your teeth if you try it. Russian models like the F1 need even more force, making the whole move even dumber. In the field, pins are often bent or taped for safety, so trying to yank one out with your mouth could end in dental bills, not explosions. Military manuals warn against it completely. Soldiers use proper grip, not molars. The whole teeth thing, just a movie move meant to look cool, not something anyone trained would actually do. Cars explode when shot. They don't. That giant fireball you see in movies when someone shoots a gas tank is just Hollywood being dramatic. In reality, bullets don't get hot enough to ignite gasoline, and most fuel tanks are built to keep oxygen out, which stops combustion. Mythbusters tested it, and the best they got was a weak puff and maybe a flicker. No explosions. Even if someone used a tracer or incendiary round, it'd still take just the right mix of air and vapor to spark anything, and even then, it'd be a flash, not a blockbuster boom. Real explosions involve pressurized tanks or exposed fire, not basic gunfire. The myth makes great cinema, but lousy science. You can knock someone out with one punch. It's possible, but not reliable. Movies make it look easy, but in real life, one-punch knockouts are rare. A KO usually happens when the brain is rattled by a sudden twist or snap, like a hit to the jaw, but that depends on a bunch of unpredictable factors like angle, timing, and how the person falls. In combat sports, trained fighters still end most matches with combinations or TKOs, not clean one-shot knockouts. And yeah, a single punch can kill if the person's head hits something on the way down, but that's not the goal, right? So while it can happen, it's not some guaranteed move. Everyone arrested gets one phone call. That's just movie nonsense. There's no federal law that guarantees a single call after arrest. What you get depends entirely on the state you're in. California actually allows at least 3 local calls within 3 hours, plus more if you're a parent arranging childcare. Other states like Illinois or Nevada let you make a reasonable number of calls, usually as soon as possible. But in places like Michigan or Pennsylvania, there's no law requiring any phone call at all before arraignment. Some people get multiple calls, some get none. It depends on local rules, not some magic right. That famous one-call scene, just screenwriting. Wizard of Oz was the first color film. It wasn't. Color films existed decades before The Wizard of Oz, some as early as 1908 using processes like Kinemacolor. By the 1920s, Technicolor was already being used in features like The Toll of the Sea, and Becky Sharp hit theaters in 1935 as the first full-length film using the 3-strip Technicolor system. What Oz did was clever. It used sepia for Kansas and switched to full color for Oz, making that shift a visual shock. That bold move helped cement its place in film history. But calling it the first color movie, that's just a rainbow-tinted myth. You have to wait 24 hours to report a missing person. Nope, that's pure fiction. There's no rule, federal or state, that says you have to wait to file a report. In fact, law enforcement urges people to report someone missing right away, especially during the first 48 hours when leads are most useful. Agencies in places like like California, New York, and Minnesota all say the same thing: don't delay. If it's a child, it's even more urgent. Federal law requires those cases to be logged within hours. Waiting can actually hurt the investigation and waste time that could save a life. The 24-hour rule is just another TV invention. Psycho was the first film to show a toilet, sort of. Psycho was the first big Hollywood movie to show a toilet and, more importantly, show it flushing. That flush before the famous shower scene pushed past what the production code allowed at the time. Earlier films had shown toilets, but they weren't mainstream releases and definitely didn't show them being used. The code treated toilets as too indecent for audiences, which now sounds ridiculous, but it was a real rule. Psycho broke that norm and helped shift what was considered acceptable on screen. So yes, it made toilet history, just not the very first flush in all of cinema. Movies are shot in script order. Not even close. Films are almost always shot out of order to save time and money. If a movie has multiple scenes set in one location, they'll shoot all of them together, even if they happen hours apart in the story. Schedules depend on when actors are available, what the lighting's like, or how long a set will be standing. The first assistant director builds a shooting schedule that's all about logistics, not story flow. Actors have to jump between emotional states because scenes aren't filmed in sequence. Continuity teams track every detail to make it look seamless later. Shooting in order, that's the exception, not the rule. Quicksand is a death trap. Not really. Real quicksand is dense, so dense in fact that people float in it rather than sink like in the movies. You might get stuck waist deep, but you won't vanish under the surface like a cartoon villain. The trick is not to panic. Struggling makes it worse, but leaning back and moving slowly helps you get out. Deaths from quicksand are extremely rare and usually caused by something else, like rising tides or exhaustion. There are a few rescue stories, but in most real cases, people escape with minor injuries or embarrassment, not doom. The danger's been wildly exaggerated for dramatic effect. Alfred Hitchcock never won an Oscar. Technically true, at least when it comes to Best Director. He was nominated 5 times for that category, but never won, which still feels bizarre given how many classics he directed. Rebecca, Lifeboat, Spellbound, Rear Window, and Psycho all earned him nods, and he walked away empty-handed each time. But in 1968, the Academy gave him the Irving G. Thalberg Memorial Award, an honorary Oscar recognizing his massive impact on cinema. So while he didn't win competitively, he was honored for his legacy. Still, no Best Director win. That's one of the biggest Oscar misses ever. The Titanic was marketed as unsinkable. Not exactly. Before its maiden voyage, the ship was described in brochures and articles as practically unsinkable or designed to be unsinkable. Not the bold, absolute claim people remember. That phrasing got distorted over time, especially after the disaster when press coverage turned it into a symbol of human arrogance. The name Titanic came from Greek mythology and was meant to suggest size and strength, not invincibility. The myth that it was flat out called unsinkable before it sank is more about dramatic hindsight than accurate advertising. It's a case of history being rewritten after tragedy struck. Brandon Lee's death was filmed. Technically, yes, but the footage was never released and doesn't appear in The Crow. During filming, a prop gun accident killed Lee, and while the camera was rolling at the time, that footage was destroyed or confiscated during the investigation. It's never been seen publicly, and no legitimate stills exist from that moment. The final cut used rewrites, body doubles, and digital tricks to finish the movie without showing anything from the fatal take. So while the incident was captured during production, none of it made it into the film. The myth that his death is in the movie is completely false. Silencers make guns completely silent, not even close. In reality, suppressors only lower the sound of gunfire by about 20 to 35 decibels. That means a suppressed shot still hits between 110 and 140 decibels, about as loud as a rock concert or a siren. They muffle the muzzle blast, but they don't touch the supersonic crack from the bullet or the clunky noise of the gun cycling. Some rare guns using subsonic ammo get quieter, but even then, they're not silent. The sound's still sharp, just less brutal. So those whisper quiet shots in spy movies, total fiction. Suppressors help, but they don't erase the bang. If you enjoyed this, I'm gonna be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.